What's up, y'all boys? It's Blux. Welcome back to the channel. And today I want to talk about some thoughts and impressions on Superman, that Superman trailer that dropped, and also what I think about what it means for the future of DC and even comic book movies going forward. Just mainly talking about how I think that the Superman movie coming out next year has a really, really good chance of saving the future of comic book movies. Now, we all know that the past couple of years has not been the best for the comic book movie landscape. And that goes for both Marvel and DC. A bit of a background for myself. I'm more of a Marvel fan than I am a DC fan, admittedly. It just always has been that way with me. I've never been more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy. Like, I've always liked Spider-Man more. I've always liked Hulk and the X-Men more than the DC slate of heroes. And I've always liked Marvel's character philosophy more than the DC philosophy, which in a nutshell is essentially the difference between the two is DC heroes are usually depicted as, well, aside from Batman being one of the more notable exceptions. DC heroes are usually, godly figures, just super powered beings, otherworldly entities living amongst men, learning the values of men and, humankind, trying to integrate themselves into humankind. Whereas conversely, Marvel characters are usually what if regular people obtain abilities, like what regular people gain, all these kinds of crazy powers. Not to say that they don't have cosmic entities or like otherworldly beings. Like Thor is a perfect example because that dude is from Asgard. But the point is generally, I've always been more of a Marvel fan. But even as a Marvel guy, we all know that the last 5 going on 10 years. Nah, that's a bit of a reach. The last like 5 years, basically since Endgame, have not been the best, right? The quality of the MCU is, well, some would say it's taking a nosedive, not just a little plunge, but it hasn't been the greatest. Personally speaking, I've actually liked some of the stuff that's come out since Endgame, but generally the consensus is that it hasn't been very good. Like Disney Plus, they got all kinds of nonsense going on with their Disney Plus shows and how they're, on the one hand, you gotta subscribe to Disney Plus and watch all those TV shows to be caught up on plot lines that'll then integrate into the movies. Otherwise, you go into the movie theater and you watching what's going on in the plot, and the plot is just pushing itself forward as if you have an idea of what's happening, but come to find out, you'll only know these characters if you happen to watch, I don't know, season 2, episode 6 of What If or Loki or something like that. But regardless, I think that with this reboot that James Gunn and the rest of the crew over at DC are trying to do, has a really, really good shot of revitalizing the industry. And the case in point is because of the fact that if this reboot is done well, like if Superman comes out and is a legitimately good movie, great plot, good characters, good characterization, strong start, strong finish, good writing. If this movie is legitimately good, then it will be, at least as far as I know, as far as I'm concerned, it will be the most standout and most prominent example of a live action big screen comic book cinematic universe successfully being reboot. Now, you might want to be like, what do you mean the first live action comic book universe being reboot successfully? That doesn't make any sense. You've got case in point examples of like the Spider-Man movies or like the Batman films going to Christopher Nolan and stuff. And sure, you can make the argument that those are comic book universes being reboot or like just new adaptations of comic book movies on screen. But those are none of those examples would count or classify as an interconnected comic book cinematic universe, like the way the MCU is or the DCEU was, things like that. They suffer what I consider, or this is what I usually call it whenever I'm making the example, only superhero in the universe syndrome, which is basically all those movies were made in the era before Hollywood and movies were ready to embrace the comic book source material as for what it is, which is a universe that encompasses numerous multiple different heroes within the same like vicinity. You know, you got the Raimi movies, Spider-Man is just saving people by himself and nothing, there are no other heroes that are within New York, at least visibly confirmed anyway. I know, for example, in Spider-Man 2, they got the Doctor Strange name drop, but aside from small cameo or like Easter eggs like that, there's no actually confirmed like active heroes within the universe. And that's, by the way, that's retroactively confirmed because of things like No Way Home, where Toby just straight up doesn't know who the Avengers are. If you want to pan over to the DC side, it's like the Batman movies. You have the era of Batman movies that came before the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy. And it's like same thing there. It's just like, it's a more grounded, realistic take on Batman. And he doesn't interact with any other heroes. Like, I'm not even entirely sure if the Justice League exists in his universe. By technicality, we don't see him interact with Superman or anything like that. So it's like we've seen reboots to franchises under Marvel and DC before in live action. And those have happened to varying degrees of success. But we have not ever seen the entirety of the cinematic universe get reboot. This is the first time it's happening, as far as I know. And like I said, because I put out a video about it, kind of reacting the other day. And it was really surprising for me, honestly, because I saw the trailer drop. I remember seeing tweets about it on Twitter saying that the trailer was about to drop in a couple of days. They're putting out teasers and stuff, and I was keeping my eye on it just because, you know, it's comic book stuff. But I didn't have any expectations on the trailer. I honestly, I was not really sure what I wanted to see from the trailer, just specifically because of the fact that I know that Superman, like James Gunn and the rest of the team were saying that they were really inspired by All-Star Superman and all that stuff. But the last 10 or so years or something like that of Superman on screen being defined by like Zack Snyder and the rest of the DCEU was just so largely removed from who Superman is in the comics that I was not entirely sure if like the classic, you know, old age, super optimistic and just like super uplifting and hopeful Superman would work in the modern day landscape. But when the trailer had dropped, it was moving me. Let me put it like that. The way everything was playing out on screen, it was moving me. Like, I saw the vision, and because of that, it's making me think that this movie can be successful. And like I said, if it is successful and it does kickstart You know, and mind you, whatever happens beyond this movie, you know, I'm not sure. Like, for example, they could do a number of different things wrong after this movie drops. Like, for example, it's unconfirmed exactly what's going on with Batman, let's say. Like, if I'm not mistaken, the Batman movie doesn't have a confirmed Batman because James Gunn and the rest of the crew, they're considering whether they want to cast a new Batman or whether they're going to try to fold over Matt Reeves' Batman, Robert Pattinson, into the DCU. Right? They're not sure. Last I heard, if I'm not mistaken, Matt Reeves is the main guy that's giving pushback. He's basically saying like, nah, I don't really want to do it. I kind of want to be able to craft my own story, my own narrative on the spot for this one particular thing. And basically the rest of the world, most of the rest of the world, they're like, oh, this would be a dope crossover because even aesthetically, it's a match. Like opposites attract kind of thing. This is a super hopeful and super optimistic, like bright looking Superman. And that Batman has the perfect vibe to slot in for the Batman role in this universe. So it makes sense. Generally speaking, it would make sense. But regardless, it's like beyond the Superman movie, they could fumble literally every step of the way, and then the totality of the universe was a fumble. But given the fact that the Superman movie is supposed to be like the launch point, if it is successful, it would still count for what I'm talking about, which is successfully rebooting the universe. Because, like I said, I mean, the comic book movie landscape in the past 5 to 10 years, if you want to count the totality of the DCEU, because the DCEU, I mean, that universe, I don't know what was going on with it. I'm pretty much after Batman v Superman, I was mentally checked out of it. I kind of, you know, I popped in here and there. There were some movies I liked, like the first Wonder Woman, the first Aquaman. That's actually a guilty pleasure, if anything. Like that, I think that first Aquaman movie got some heart to it. But beside from those, and like Man of Steel being a respectable start to that universe, right? The DCEU was shaky pretty much throughout. Like I said, the last 5 or so years of Marvel has been questionable at best, and that's putting it very generously. And it's like for example, on the Marvel side of things, it's like post Secret Wars, because I mean, we all know a reboot is coming, right? That's kind of the narrative point of Secret Wars. Like one of the major reasons for Secret Wars' existence, both versions, the original and 2015 Secret Wars, is like the reboot of the universe. You know, the storyline of how everyone gets consolidated into one universe, which is Battle World, and then the plot of Secret Wars plays out, and then after everything's said and done, is typically everyone's consolidated down into what would be the new 616 universe, which, by the way, I still don't know how they're gonna do that with the MCU because of the way they classified the universe designation. I don't know why the MCU's main universe, Earth, is 616 when in the comics that's a whole other can of worms. But case in point, man, just like how Superman is supposed to live up to being a hopeful, optimistic, and beacon of light, I think the Superman movie is gonna do just that, and hopefully it's legitimately like a great movie and does well at the box office, because if it does, then it's gonna bode well for the future of comic book movies as a whole. Because that's the other thing, man. Competition. Look, it's as simple as this. In basically all industries that provide services or products for people to consume, there should be a level of healthy competition between those service providers so that we, the customers, get the best products. Could you imagine a world in which we have two healthy, quality, active comic book cinematic universes? That would be sensational if you ask me, man. Marvel, they got what they got going on and they putting out banger after banger after banger. DC, they got their DCU on the other side and they doing the same thing. They going match for match, band for band, banger after banger after banger. I mean, as a fan of comic books, you should want that with all your heart and soul. But yeah, man, that's what I think. Let me know what y'all think about it in the comments below. Like the vid if you like the vid. Subscribe if you're not one of my thousands of ops. No, I gotta stop saying. No, but seriously, hit the subscribe button if you rock with me and you enjoy the content and all that. And I'll catch y'all on the next one.